Well, good evening, everybody, or good afternoon. So welcome to the BISC, and thanks for joining us today. I've been asked by the Queen's Events team to remind you that this session will be recorded. So, I'm Hugh Horton, the Vice Provost and Executive Director of the Bader International Study Center, and here I am in the Elizabethan room of Hirschmossoo Castle. And it's very good to speak with everyone out there in the wider world. I imagine for most of you, you're somewhere in North America, but you may well be in Europe as well. So it's just coming up on what, 6:15 in the evening here. So we're coming to the end of a week at the BISC, and it's been a very busy week. But I want to start out our time together by showing you a video of the last 3 students on campus after the evacuation in March of 2020. So I'm just going to ask my colleague here, Duncan, in the background, to cue up that video for us, and then I'll say a few things about it. I didn't hear any feedback, so I'm assuming we're now.
You're 100% certain? Yeah, I'm showing my system sounds. Yeah, doesn't matter if I'm muted. So we muted now. We muted in this room, yeah. Cool. So you've allowed yourself 5 minutes to talk about what you've just seen, Hugh, and then you cue me again for the tour with Guy, which is 7 minutes long.
Well, thanks everybody. So that was a video of our 3 last students at the castle in, I guess it would have been late April last year in 2020. And as you can see, they were walking down from a deserted Bader Hall to an equally deserted castle. There was literally almost nobody left on campus at that time, other than the 3 students and a few other staff who would come in to make sure that they, of course, were safe and well fed and comfortable. They did all in the end manage to get back home, but it was a bit of an experience for some of them. But I'm very glad to say that I think they actually sort of enjoyed their final days at the castle, and the sort of unexpected quiet that they managed to, that they ran into. So that was, of course, at the beginning of the pandemic. And as the pandemic wore on, we had 18 months at the castle with no students. They were online, and we had some very successful online learning during the 18 months of the pandemic. But on the castle site itself, activity began to really ramp up in the summer of 2020. And as we got to the end of August in 2020, we actually reopened for visitors. And around that time, we had our grounds and gardens head, Guy Lucas, create a video for us about what was going on with the grounds and gardens and how they were getting ready for the reopening of the castle outside. So we'll just cue the next video of Guy.
Welcome to the grounds of Hurstman Zoo Castle. I'm Guy, the Gardens and Grounds Manager.
As you may know, Hurstman Zoo Castle is the home of the Beda International Study Centre, also known as the BISC. The BISC is a UK campus of Queen's University, Canada, and is located towards the south coast of the UK, about an hour and a half by train from London. The grounds of Hurstman Zoo Castle comprise around 600 acres of woodland, fields and gardens, with the castle and halls of residence at their centre. The grounds support a diverse array of wildlife, both flora and fauna, in a range of habitats from the canopies of the trees to the depths of the ponds. I'm responsible, along with my team of estate workers and gardeners, for ensuring that these varied habitats work in harmony with each other and enable diversity to flourish.
Join me for a walk around the grounds of the castle, where we look at different habitats, find out more about how we're protecting them for future generations.
The castle is open to visitors 8 months of the year, and usually all year round the university campus is alive with students, staff and faculty going about their business. However, this year, as last, is a bit different, as the pandemic has forced us to temporarily close our doors. So this is actually an excellent time to see just what's going on in preparation for everyone rejoining us.
Much of the woodland at the BISC is ancient woodland, and it's nearly 400 years old. It's comparable to the UK version of the Amazon rainforest.
It requires sensitive care to support the many delicate symbiotic relationships which have evolved within these woods over hundreds of years.
One of the ways we can do this is by coppicing. Coppicing dates back to the Neolithic period, and it involves cutting the trees at the base, allowing them to regrow, and it opens up areas of the woodland, allowing sunlight in for the flora and the fauna. It will benefit birds, bats, insects and all the small mammals. As well as ancient woodland, we've also got Grade 2 listed historic medieval parkland. There used to be hundreds of red, roe and fallow deer here, and we still have the deer here today.
Historically, the parkland would have been open grassland, interspersed with scatterings of scrub and great old trees. Due to war, agriculture and lapses in ownership, the parkland all but disappeared. Until now, we're in the process of a 10-year restoration of this historically rare feature and valuable ecosystem. This project has involved the removal of up to 80% of the non-native and invasive trees, so we are able to retain and enhance the mature parkland character trees within the area, as well as planting new parkland trees to continue the legacy. Through careful grazing and mowing, we will restore the parkland's flora and associated wildlife. This has enabled the BISC to create its own living piece of history. Obviously, January is not the month in which the grounds are at their peak. The trees are bare and much of the wildlife is safely tucked away. There is still plenty to be getting on with, caring for the estate and ensuring it's ready for when summer comes around, and it's at its best for everyone to enjoy. The grounds are loved by our visitors, with several trails to follow and areas to picnic. It's also a place which the BISC community will head when they want exercise, relaxation, or just some space. For the lunchtime ramblers, the grounds offer a varied terrain, from the gentle lawns to the rolling Sussex hills.
There are 5 interlinking ponds running from the north. That's Dry Pond Shore, the Folly Pond, Red Lily Pond, the Moat, that then runs into the Kentland Fleet on the Pevensey levels.
The ponds at the BISC are enormously significant in their conservation value and are designated sites of special scientific interest, or SSIs. This is due to the unusual and rare collection of wetland plants found within the ponds, such as the Cornish moneywort, water violet, and the milk parsley. These plants are here due to the exact right conditions they need to survive and the care which has been taken to conserve this special habitat. Not only are the BISC fortunate enough to have such a rare collection of flora, but the plants such as milk parsley offer even greater potential, as it happens to be the sole caterpillar food source for one of the UK's rarest and most spectacular butterflies, the swallowtail. With opportunities like these, the BISC offer a real future potential for the protection and conservation of such rare and special species. The ecological jewel in the crown at the BISC are the Pevensey Levels National Nature Reserve, a nationally important wetland. This large expanse of grazed wetland combines the use of agriculture and conservation to create a unique habitat. These wetlands are home to water voles, otters, a haven for threatened bird species and molluscs. It's even one of the locations out of only 3 in the country where you can see the fen raft spider. Through the sensitive protection of the environment and working with surrounding landowners, we are able to deliver conservation projects which offer national importance. By adapting land use, carefully desilting ponds, weeding to control invasive plants, whilst encouraging beneficial plants, water and light level management, and undertaking surveys to monitor the success of the work. This means these conservation efforts by BISC will go towards supporting the world biodiversity crisis and help preserve many threatened species and their habitats. Increasingly, the grounds are being used to support the learning of students who come to the BISC each year. Dr. Simon Coppard, Professor of Biology, is currently collaborating with Dr. Stephen Bednarski on the Environment of Change project, which measures the change in climate as recorded by trees. 5 old English oaks have had dendrometers attached to them to record changes going forwards, and core samples are being used to determine changes in the past through dendrology. The site has also been used in the past for various archaeological digs. In May 2021, further excavations will be taking place near the Folly to determine how the site has been used in the past.
So that's some of the work that we've undertaken to care for the estate and protect it for the many years to come. Join us in a couple of months to see when the estate starts to come to life.
Well, thanks everybody. So that video featuring our head of grounds and gardens, Guy Lucas, was recorded in the spring of this year of 2021. And actually we've reused it, we will admit, for this event because it was originally recorded for the Thrive Week at Queen's and was a bit of an uplift for people at what was, of course, a very dark time in the spring of 2021. So Guy talks a lot about the grounds and gardens and sustainability. And one of the really important things that we're moving towards at the castle, at BISC, and which we've been working on while the pandemic was taking place, is looking at how we can support the United Nations 17 Sustainable Development Goals. So those Sustainable Development Goals, or SDGs, are also a part of the Principal's overall strategy for Queen's moving forward. And Queen's participated in the Times Higher Education's ranking system last year, and ranked very high. In fact, it ranked #1 in Canada and 5th in the world based on its contributions to those SDGs. So in a small way, BISC has been able to contribute overall to, of course, the global sustainability and also to Queen's own success overall. So moving forwards, we have a number of students arriving on campus who've really engaged with those SDGs in the past month and are working hard towards various projects around the estate that can be used to further our contribution to those sustainable development goals, including such things as life on land, life on water, but also bigger picture things like building sustainable cities or equality and justice. So our academic programs support all of these things. So moving forwards, an important part of BISC is going to be supporting the research mission of the university. This is something that the BISC has not done to a huge extent in the past, but we are moving more and more towards supporting research on site. For example, 2 years ago, we were successful as part of a group led by Dr. Stephen Bednarski at the University of Waterloo in obtaining a Social Science and Humanities Research Council grant called Environments of Change that explores the impacts of climate change on society during the Middle Ages and up to the present day. And you saw in the video some of the things that have been going on site with our faculty and this year with our students in supporting that grant. So as we move on to the next section, I'm going to cue up a little short video that talks about how students are going to be engaged in research as they return to the BISC site.
Hi, I'm Robert Hyland, part of the teaching team of the BISC 100 and 101 courses. These are 2 courses developed here at Herstmonceux Castle for the Beta International Study Center, but now available online through the ASO. If you're a first-year student or an upper-year student looking to recharge their understanding of research papers, this is an excellent course for you. New to university, we take the principles of research and break it down into its first practices. We'll be looking at primary sources, that could be letters, journal articles, photographs from archives or databases, and secondary sources. This could be research reports written by other academics in journal articles or perhaps book chapters. And we will be applying our understanding of both those primary and secondary sources to our own research projects. You'll learn how to write an essay from the outlining stages to the researching stages to the final drafting stages. So BISC 100 and 101, available through the Arts and Sciences Online, and an excellent option for first-year students who are new to university study or for upper-year students who are looking to better understand how their research works.
Well, thanks, Rob. So you just saw Rob Hyland, who is one of our faculty, actually long-standing faculty here at the BISC, and he teaches film as well as the Thinking Locally and Acting Globally courses, BISC 100 and 101. So Rob was part of a team of faculty who really led during the pandemic in moving our in-person learning, which is very much based in this place, to an online approach. Now, of course, we've gone back to in-person learning this year, but we learned a lot during the pandemic, and what we learned about online learning and online engagement with our students is going to be used moving forwards. So Rob is actually teaching a hybrid course this year. We have students on site doing it in person with Rob, but then those students are being joined with students from Canada and around the world in an online format as well, so that they can all interact with each other across our global community. Not only in BISC 100, 101 is this happening, we also have interactions with students out in Japan. And during the lockdown last winter, we had an excellent session called COIL, or Collaborative Online Learning, with the University of Coventry in England, which we're going to be repeating this winter. So a lot of things have come out of the pandemic which are really positive in terms of teaching and learning at the castle. I think that is a really important thing that we've been able to move forwards with. And then the other piece, of course, is engaging the students with the research. And BISC 100, 101 is all about getting students to think about research engagement and moving forwards in future courses in actually doing that research in person and with the many opportunities that there are within the BISC site. So now I'm going to move on to our few slides just to conclude this. So I'm going to ask Duncan in the background there to cue that up if I can. And I'm hoping I'm going to see what I'm talking about. Ah, right. Okay, there we go. So I think, see if that works. I think, Duncan, I'm just going to have to ask you to cue. Okay. Ah, okay. So here's just a bit of a summary of what we've talked about in those 3 videos. So we start with, of course, a return to life at the castle and our reopening to visitors. So we did reopen in the late summer, fall of 2020, but that was sort of a false start. As we all know, last summer was a bit of a false start for ending the pandemic. But this summer, or this spring, we really did reopen. And the picture you see on the left-hand side of the 2 ladies at the end of the walkway, these are the 2 presenters for BBC Southeast. And they actually, BBC Southeast, so the local BBC News, came to the castle and hosted their entire 6 p.m. program from the castle site. So here they are, socially distanced, about to start their presentation at the castle. You can see up in the top corner some of our visitors walking their dogs at the site. Again, all very safe. And of course, the super safe signed Chestnuts Cafe reopening to visitors. Now, as we moved forwards in the year, we actually had a bit more going on. It was quite interesting. We had a photo shoot. And what you see here is actually an ad that's been made for getting your COVID-19 test. So you actually see, this is like the shoot, this guy sticking a swab up the nose of a medieval knight as part of that ad. So yes, a bit of a fun thing that happened. Now let's see if this works. Yeah. So as we came into September, things really began to come alive on campus. In some ways, we're lucky to be in England because England has somewhat fewer restraints than we see in Canada in terms of COVID restrictions. But we are adhering to a much higher standard actually than the public requirements. The public requirements here, for example, would not require you to have masks in an indoor setting. But here we've made sure everybody has masks in what is in fact a sort of half outdoor setting in a tent behind Baker Hall. So this is the scarfing ceremony as students arrive. And then we can move on to see what the students are going to be doing this term as they arrive at the castle. So this is more about our research focus. And one of the great things I think that we did during the pandemic was we actually went out and thought about what we needed, and the people we needed, and we went out and hired some people. And one of those people is Dr. Claire Kennan, who you can see here, and she is now the research coordinator at the BISC. Claire's background is in medieval history, but as she arrived, she quickly realized that one of the areas of history at the castle that's much overlooked and has a lot of potential is in fact not the 1420s, but the 1920s. When you think about it, the 1920s are much like today. They're 100 years ago, of course, but people had just come out of a terrible world war and in fact the flu pandemic. So she's talking about what she's going to be talking to the students this year as part of a general theme for our year about the 1920s. And her title is actually called The Colonel and the Party Palace. The Colonel being Colonel Claude Lowther, who actually rebuilt Hurstmonceux Castle. So what you see in the castle today, all the lovely woodwork and the staircases and so on, is actually a lot down to him. And he built it to entertain. So hence the Party Palace. So the students are going to be looking at who was here in the 20s, what they were doing here, what people's lifestyles were both above the above the stairs and below stairs, and how that led to the future and the structure that we see around us today. So moving on to the next slide. The other side of the castle, so that's the social history of the castle that we could look at. But another key component that we want to look at is what we touched on before, the environmental impact and the sustainability around the castle site. So the other person we hired was a biologist, Dr. Simon Coppard, and he is the science coordinator at the BISC now. He appears on the far left-hand side here. This is actually one of the little side projects that was going on, but as some of you might have remembered when you were here, there is actually beekeeping going on at the castle. And this is all about doing some studies of these bees and actually also improving the hives and moving to a new site. So there's going to be some more work done on the health of the bees and the bee ecosystem, I suppose you'd say, at the castle over the next couple years. As well, Simon is leading on a lot of the environmental remediation work in conjunction with Guy Lucas and rewilding of the castle site. So that's a term that's now become quite common in England, rewilding, but what it really means is trying to bring our environment back to something that is long-term sustainable and might resemble in some ways, but in a managed way, what things were like before humans came onto the scene and began impacting the environment. So that is long-term. What we really want to do is rewild the castle. Simon's also leading on our science programming at the BISC. So just before the pandemic happened, we opened our new science labs. And some of you who were here at the 25th anniversary 2 years ago will remember the reopening. Excuse me. So sorry about that, everyone. They obviously didn't read the sign. So the rewilding.
I'm sorry, I left my stuff over here.
Excuse me.
Read the sign, we're live. Sorry.
Oh dear. All right. So sorry for that interruption and any irritation that I appear to have had. So the labs were reopened this summer, this fall, and we're beginning the process of really ramping up our science programs at the castle, with but also bringing in the new health science program to the castle. So that was supposed to happen in 2021, but it had to be delayed to this year. And we now have about 40 health science students studying here. So that's a long-term program that we're going to be developing further, including a third-year upper year program for health science students starting next fall. And then finally, I'm going to say once again about how science at the BISC is again contributing to sustainability, both on the site itself and in the at the estate, and also in the local community. So here are students out on the beach at Pevensey Bay, but we can also see some pictures of what's actually going on in the estate. This is real. We have bluebells. We have what I would like to say I know kind of butterfly it is, but I don't. But that's living on the estate. And then of course you can see deer are on the estate, and we have some pretty majestic looking deer floating around there. So all these things are moving us forwards in terms of increasing our sustainability at the BISC, our research impact at the BISC, and providing new learning and teaching opportunities for students at the BISC. So I think that concludes my discussion about what we're trying to do and where we've been for the last 18 months. And I'd like to thank everyone out there. And if you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to try answering them for you. I'm not quite sure, do we have?
So if you receive a question, read it out and acknowledge it. You might want to start by acknowledging Karen. Oh, whoops, I see something, except it disappeared. Okay, so we have a question from SJD, and just telling us, Sarah Jane Dumbrill, sorry, she signed it at the end. So she's telling us a superb presentation. Well, thank you, Sarah. And a wonderful way to get caught up with the BISC. I'm so excited for you and about all that is going on. The BISC means so much to me and my family, with all 3 of our children having gone there for a semester or 2. Well, that's fantastic. And I hope all 3 kids are out there listening or hearing more about this. I don't know if there's any other questions we have from the audience today. We are at sort of 10 minutes left to go, so if there aren't any other questions, we could just close for now and have everyone thank everyone. So feel free to follow up with me about any of the topics discussed using the email address provided. And I hope you enjoy the rest of the homecoming.